Hi everyone, Phil from Tech for Techs. Today we're going to be looking at this from CORSAIR. It's their K95 RGB Platinum XT keyboard. And the way we're going to review this is as if we've never used a CORSAIR keyboard before, because they have various older versions which are very similar. And a lot of reviews basically say, oh yeah, it's better than the old one and so forth. But if you've never gone out and bought one before, you don't know, obviously, what the old one's like. So we're going to review it as if we've never used one of their keyboards before. This product does have a recommended retail price of £209 UK, so it's definitely not cheap. But if you click the links in the description below, it will take you to basically the cheapest price where we can find it online in your country. Okay, so as you can see, we're going to be looking at the CORSAIR K95 RGB Platinum XT keyboard. So basically first I'm just going to go through the specifications, we'll have a look at the box, we'll unbox it, and then obviously test it and have a look at the software and so forth. As I said before, I have not used this product before, it's totally unopened, so this is all unscripted. So basically you're going to see it exactly how we're going to see it for the first time. So let's go over the specifications. Okay, so the basic specifications, this comes with a 2-year warranty. It is RGB, the keyboard layout is ND, there is 6 macro keys at 1000 Hz report rate. This comes with Cherry MX speed switches. They also do an MX Blue as well. It's a USB 2 Type A connection on there. 111 keys altogether. It is wired. It's got adjustable height. It's got FPS, MOBA, media controls, and it is based on the K95 design, obviously due to its name. Onboard memory is 8 megabytes. Number of onboard profiles, you can have 5. Dedicated hotkeys for Winlock, media keys. It also comes with a wrist rest as well, so it supports in IQ, and it's also got a braided cable on there. It's also got a pass-through as well, so it should be pretty straightforward. And it's also got your keyboard rollover on there as well, and anti-ghosting and so forth. So that should be the basics. Let's have a look what it says on the box then. Okay, so we've got the CORSAIR K95 RGB Platinum XT mechanical gaming keyboard. It says it's English down there. It's got the IQ, which is their software, what they use. This is RGB Speed Cherry MX switches, so it's got a decent brand of switches in there, and it's quoted for 100 million keystrokes on there guaranteed, which I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Cherry normally only gives 50 million, and if this is using Cherry key, who knows? But if they say 100, we'll believe them. Okay, so let's have a look at the rest of the box. Side's yellow, not much information there to see. The side here is pretty much the same again, playthrough, whatever, so a bit of marketing stuff. You've got specifications in your different languages there, which I've basically just read out to you. It does have a bit more information like dimensions and weight. The weight is 1.31 kilograms, and in inches, so the measurements are, oh, it does actually give them in millimeters as well, so it's 465 millimeters by 171 by 36 deep or thick, depending on how you want to class it as. So let's have a look at the back. You can see the keyboard again, and it gives you even more specifications there as well, and you've got all the stickers for Cherry MX. It says it's compatible with PC, Mac and Xbox One. It probably is compatible with other things as well, possibly, but it doesn't actually say. Bear in mind, depending on the program you're using it on, for example, like the Xbox One, if you're using it on that, you're not going to be able to use the IQ software and stuff like that, so you're relying on the controls on the keyboard to change the colouring, presuming there are options to do that. So let's open this up and see what we've got. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got inside the box. This is everything that's inside the box, other than obviously the little bits of plastic and stuff, what they wrap it in and so forth. So you've got the keyboard, you've got the wrist rest, manuals and lots of little keys and stuff. So let's start off with the smallest items and move up to the biggest, or let's say the least important, which is your warranty guide. Yeah, it's got 2-year warranty, blah 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 blah. So obviously check with that with all your terms, and then you've also got your manual there, which no one ever looks at, but if you really want to, it'll tell you probably the hotkeys, what to press to do certain different things, what's inside the box. And yeah, to be honest with you, it looks like there's literally 2 pages in English, the rest is all different languages. So that's basically your English instructions there. So unfortunately it doesn't tell you much at all. There's probably more information on the website, but it's not really much of a manual for English. In all honesty, they could have just had a QR code and you just scan that and it would have taken you to the manufacturer's manual on the website in your language, but hey ho. Right, let's go to the next smallest items. Well, that's a little bit bigger than the smallest. You've got a keycap remover. To remove a key on the keyboard like this, mechanical keyboard, you just put it over there and then you pull up and it pulls the, well, basically the keycap off, which makes it very simple rather than trying to pick it off with your fingers and so forth. And the reason why you do that, and that's why you've got these keys here, you can change the keys on your keyboard for these different style of keys. Most of the keys, like the W, A, S and D and all the surrounding keys around here, which you would normally use when you're playing most games, are basically a matte or a flat finish on them, where these keys are basically textured. And because they're textured, it hopefully allows you to grip onto the keys better, your fingers won't slide off them and so forth. Obviously it's up to you which you prefer. There's also a CORSAIR key, so you can change one of the Windows buttons, or any key really, for a CORSAIR button. But another thing to notice with these keys, they do supply, for example this is the D key, it does have a slight tilt to it, and that's so it basically keeps your fingers scooped into that W, A, S and D. So it's a little bit thicker on one side than it is on other sides. I'm not sure if you can see that 100% on the camera. I'll stick some pictures up in a few seconds. And that's the same for stuff like the R, E, W, Q, F, D and all these different keys there. There's slightly different designs depending on how you want them. And you've also got S1 up to S6, which these are basically your hot buttons or your control keys or whatever you want to call them, macro keys even, but there's basically 6 extra keys you usually use when you're playing games. They do have already this sort of grey top to them, and they do provide ones with a blue top. Why? I'm not sure, because one is, they're both textured, so the only difference is the colour. So I would have thought they would have done like a plain flat one like they have the rest of the keys, and then a textured version, so you could have either or depending on what you prefer. But again, that is up to you. Now let's go on to the wrist rest before we look at details at the keyboard itself. So you've got a wrist rest here. Looks pretty good. It does have a little bit of a mark on there. That's just where it's been in the box. That should hopefully pop out. But so you can get a little bit of a closer look, you should see the texture on there. Gives you a rough idea. And that basically clips on the front of the keyboard like that. So obviously when you type in, you rest your wrists on them, hence name wrist rest, which makes it more comfortable. To be honest, it doesn't seem like the most sturdy one I've come across, in all honesty. Seems a little flimsy. I've seen cheaper ones seem a little bit better. Again, if you want to take it off, you have to basically turn it upside down and squeeze. But you'll see what I mean in a second. You can see it's very bendy. So normally if you want a wrist rest, you want it pretty sturdy, because the last thing you want to do is be leaning on it, and you see it's bending on the edges if you lean too heavy on it, which, don't get me wrong, might be okay for most people. It might not be for others. Okay, sorry if there was a little bit of rustling there. Basically, the braided cable here decided it was going to basically rub up and down on my microphone what's on my shirt there. So if you got a little bit of a rustling noise, that's why. It wasn't that I was eating a bag of crisps or anything like that. It's just the cable. But talking about the cable, yes, it is braided. And as you can see there, it is quite a thick cable. It does bend very easily though, so there doesn't seem to be an issue there. Let's have a look how long it is. I didn't see the manufacturer actually say how long that cable was, but it does look a decent length until I get these silly cable ties off. Okay, so let's have a quick look. That cable is I'd say roughly 2.2 meters altogether. And that's including the connectors on the end. Bear in mind there are two USB connectors on the end. They do have a little plastic wrap around them. They have got a slight texture on them. Not that it really bothers you, to be honest, if you're plugging it in the back of your PC or wherever. But just take the little wraps off. Use super glue to stick them on. Right, there we go. So that's what they look like. The reason you've got two connectors, one is to power the keyboard and so you can use it. The other one will be for the USB pass-through on here, which USB pass-through basically means you can plug a device into this keyboard here, like a mouse or a memory stick or something like that, without having to plug it in the back of your machine or your front. So it's basically a quick access USB port. When your keyboard's plugged in, you'll be able to use just like any other keyboard. But it is a USB, but it is USB 2. So that means USB 2.0 if you want to be like that. But that basically means it will work at what we class as slow speeds. It's not your fast USB 3, so don't expect any fast transfer speeds. Pretty ideal for something like a mouse, maybe a headset, but if you wanted to transfer data, maybe not the quickest way of doing it, even though it will work. Otherwise, the cable basically connects together here. Again, another bit of that plastic on there. Save the environment and everything, eh? Alright, okay, and it just connects up there. But it is a nice, sturdy, let's see if you can get a close look of it, braided cable there. So I don't think you're going to have any problems with this snagging or anything, but who knows, you might get it caught up against your microphone like I just did. So let's have a closer look at the keyboard. Let's start with the back. So on the bottom of the keyboard you do have an X pass-through. That means you can have cables running all the way down through there. You're not going to be using the cable what's on the keyboard because it's too thick. That's basically designed for pushing something like a mouse cable or another type of cable underneath if you needed to. Obviously that's totally up to you what type you do. You do have two nice rubber feet here at the front as well as at the back. Obviously the back one's got a cutout on them because you do have two feet there which do have rubber ends on them as well. So that means it's going to grip onto the table. So for example, it's flipped out, that's with the feet up. If I nudge this, it shouldn't slide anyway. It does a little bit, but the desk moves more so. But when in general use, that is not going to basically slide about, and probably even less so when you've got those back feet down. Yeah, it's even more sturdy when they're down. So as you can see there, I'm basically rocking the table rather than the keyboard. So it looks pretty good. Also on the bottom, you've got those two holes there. That's where obviously your wrist rest clips into, which you saw a few minutes ago. Otherwise, manufacturer's details, not much else on the bottom to see, which, to be honest, is expected. It's a keyboard. Okay, right, on the top, what I'm going to do first is plug this in to give you a rough idea what it looks like while we're doing the rest of it. So just bear with me. There we go, that's plugged in and you probably heard it go ping ping ping. So basically, as you can see, it lights up. You can see the lighting, it looks fairly bright on there. It's probably not as bright as some keyboards I've seen in the past. Let's just try the brightness key. Yeah, that's as bright as it goes. So you've got off, a little bit of light, medium and high, and then back off again. So I think what it is the type of the keycap, so I think it's PBS or something like that, which basically means it's double layered. So if I show you one of these, you can see you've got your outside plastic, and then it's got like another layer of plastic on the inside which the light shines through. But it also, they're basically using a harder plastic which makes them last longer, but because they last longer and it's a harder plastic, the light doesn't shine through the key as well. But still, if you're in a dark room, you're going to see that. We'll do some pictures in a bit with a lot of the lights off, so it looks a bit better. Again, at the moment I've got loads of studio lights on, so you're probably not going to see it to its full potential, but this just gives you a rough idea. So let's have a look at the other keys. So as we said, you've got these hot buttons down the side, or programmable buttons, or whatever you want to call them, macro buttons. You've got all your standard keys. Other than these ones here, the only one what's textured is the space bar. Unfortunately, there's no way of changing it to a standard key type. That you only get one space bar, which is a bit of a shame. Let's try and take that space bar off and see how it's in. If it'll let me take it off, there we go. So you've got your space bar, you've got your switch in the middle there. You can probably hear it if I click it down. See, it's not very loud. And then you've got two supporting ones on either side there, which do have a slight bit of a rattle to them. So I'm guessing if this space bar is used a lot, it might actually rattle quite a bit. Let's have a look. Yeah, has a slight rattle to it, which is a shame considering this is an over £200 keyboard. The other keys don't do that. Enter does have a slight rattle, so does the shift key. So basically the big keys have a bit of a rattle to them. Again, well, you probably notice that when you use it, probably not so much, but if you've got a shaky hand, it could rattle a little bit. So also on here, you've also got some hot buttons up here for brightness, putting Windows lock on. I think that's for your profiles, for your colours. Yeah, as you can see. Or hopefully with the lighting, that gives you a few preset colour styles. And again, as I said, it's hard to tell with the camera if you actually can see that at the moment. But there's a few different profiles. Also over here you have got volume mute, but you've also got a turntable which turns the volume up and down, and I can see on my screen that's going up and down. You've also got stop, back, play, pause and forward. That's obviously if you're playing media like obviously music and stuff like that. It probably works on videos as well depending on the player you're using. But otherwise that's the keyboard itself. There is obviously 3 little lights there. That's for like your caps lock, number lock and stuff like that. You've also got RGB lighting across the top of the keyboard here. So it looks pretty cool. Could light your desk up pretty nice in the dark or something like that. The lighting only goes a little bit down at the side, not all the way down. There's no lighting at the bottom because obviously you're going to have that wrist rest on there. So I'm going to click that on. As you can see, it clips on easily. Doesn't clip off easily. Okay, so but generally you're usually going to use it one way or another. Just to give you an idea of what it sounds like, normal typing. Again, my microphone is roughly, I'd say, 15 to 20 centimeters away, so probably not far off ear height when you're actually typing on one of these keyboards normally. So just to give you an idea of the normal keys. So for a mechanical keyboard, it's not actually that loud. It's not the big clicky noises you get on some, like for example this one I've got the other side of the room. And that's back to this one. It's not as loud, so not as clicky. So that's a good sign, depending on obviously how you prefer it. Spacebar is a little bit more rattly sounding, unfortunately, compared to the other keys. Enter's not too bad, but it does, and space and so forth. If you heard a beep then, it's just, obviously I'm using this while it's plugged in, so it's coming up with the sticky keys warning in Windows. So pretty much the keys sound pretty good, apart from the larger keys do sound a little bit rattly, if anything. Just noticed the logo does actually light up with RGB lighting as well. Again, hard to see that because of obviously the lighting in the studio. And the same with the media keys, they do light up where It doesn't look like the keys light, well, they do light up, but they seem to be a set colour. These seem to be purple and that one seems to be red. Again, very hard to see with the lighting in here, so I'll just turn some of the lights out just to give you guys an idea. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I've basically turned out most of the keys in, most of the lights in here off. I've only got one left on because I need to actually see what I'm doing, otherwise I'm going to trip over and kill myself, which you guys probably won't mind that, but my wife probably would. So let's have a look. So you can see the colour and effects there, probably looks a little bit better. Let me put the feet up so you can see. So as you can see there, it does light up, and here's some of the preset profiles for the colouring. So you've got like a dancing effect, looks like a windmill effect. I'm guessing that's a wave effect. They probably have some fancy names for all these different effects. You've got purple, you've got multicoloured, waving, dancing, and that windmill again. So there's probably a few other different ways of changing those. There's not much in the manual, but each key is individually lit. We'll have a look at their software, but if I'm correct, you can specifically set certain keys at different colours. So if you wanted the whole keyboard off, apart from the W, A, S and D, and let's say the enter key and the space, you could just light those keys up, and you can have each key a different colour, or you could have every single key on the keyboard the same colour, or every single one a complete different colour. That is obviously totally up to you. But there you go, gives you a rough idea. But we're going to have a look at the software now, so let's have a see what that actually does. Okay, so this is the software, what you get with the keyboard. It's called iCue. Corsair also uses the software for various different things. You can see we've actually got a Corsair power supply in this machine as well. You've got a few different pages. You've got the home page, which gives you default profiles. You can create certain profiles and save them, and then change the profiles depending on the games or what you're doing. So you could have a profile for first-person shooters, one's for strategy games, and one for when you're doing photo editing. It's really up to you, and you can create or take away from those if you wish. You've got a dashboard there as well, which doesn't seem to really do much unless you go onto individual items. You've got lighting controls, so you can give everything a preset lighting control if you wish. And then you've got settings, so you can change your polling rate, the current layout, do updates, and even clear the onboard storage if you wanted. So you've got a few different items you can do there. But if you go back to the home page, let's just click on the keyboard. This is where it gives you more options. You can see the keyboard there, and it gives you different options down the left hand side, like actions, lighting effects, performance, and onboard profiles. I'm not going to go through every single option, but just to give you a rough idea, under actions, you can basically create a new macro. So you just press the little plus sign what's on the screen, which is there, and then it says start to record a macro by pressing the record button. So all we do is press the record button. Let's just say you want your macro to type out the word QWERTY. You just type QWERTY in there and then stop recording, and then that macro has been made, and you can select the key on the keyboard you want that macro to be. So every time now you press the key, what's on the keyboard called S5, you will get the macro running, and it'll type the word QWERTY. Obviously this is ideal for in games where you have to press lots of different keys at the same time. Some games you can like set up healing macros or buffing macros or whatever you want. And this is where you would set them up, and then you'd use your hotkeys down the left side or your macro keys down the left side of the keyboard to easily run through all those. But you don't have to just set it for those keys. You can set the macro to run on another key as well if you wish. So you wanted the R key to be your macro, you just click on it. There are other options in there, including mouse clicks, wheels and so forth, but that's totally up to you. Lighting effects, let's just go on to there. So you've got lighting effects. Again, you can change the lighting effects on there, so you can press plus and it'll give you options to change different lighting effects. So you can see you've got rainbows, colour pulse, waves, all sorts on there. You can set it to the whole keyboard, or you could just select certain keys on the keyboard you want it to do. So if you only want to select those ones on the left, those ones are the only ones what it'll affect, and the rest of the keyboard will stay green, or whatever. So you've got different types. You can do individual key lighting. So if you only want, say that key, and that key lit up, they're the only keys that are going to be lit up on your keyboard, depending on obviously what option you have. You've got rain effects, you've got obviously types of lighting, you can choose which colours it's changing between. Pretty much anything you can think of. You can choose pretty much any colour under the sun. So at the moment we've got the whole keyboard pulsating green, but then those three letters on the keyboard, the T, S and the S6 key, are purple but static. So you can set up lots of different lighting effects. You don't have to have one lighting effect for the whole keyboard. You could have the keyboard split into multiple sections, so a different effect for the number pad, a different effect for the W, A, S and D, different effect for the S keys, different effect for basically whatever you want. So you can create lots of different ones. There are some hardware actions and lightings as well. That's where it saves it into the keyboard rather than the software. I won't run you through that now, but you basically do exactly the same thing. You've got performance on there. This is where you can disable alt tabs when Windows locking is on, and different things. You've also got disable Windows lock. You've got different colouring as well for disabling those items as well if you so wish. And then you've got your profiles, so you can swap between which profiles you want. You can clear and wipe them as well. So it gives you a rough idea. You can do pretty much everything you want there.